everybody. Welcome to episode number 7 of the Cats and Bolts podcast, Florida's favorite hockey show, coming to you live from the Podcast Junkies studio in downtown Boca as we discuss Florida NHL hockey, the Florida Panthers, and the Tampa Bay Lightning. And in this episode, we don't have any NHL alumni. We're going to go through 10 burning questions, some that pertain to these two NHL teams we just talked about, and some other league-wide, NHL-wide topics as we kind of bring in what you folks said you would like us to talk about. But I'll tell you, we're brought to you by DraftKings, Beach House Pompano, Barasco, and the Diamond Lab. And Serena Taylor is with me, the co-host. How you doing, Serena?
I'm well.
Good, ready to talk hockey, your
always.
favorite thing?
It's not what we do all day.
Well, yes, it is. And to be honest, the number one thing I wanted to talk about, the number one burning question, people are saying more Lightning talk. And I used to hate complaints and suggestions from people. Now I don't, because it tells me they're watching and they're listening and they're enjoying what we're doing, but they want to talk more Tampa Bay Lightning, which might actually belie this question that I've had this fall from somebody. Who's got more fans, the Panthers or the Lightning? We'll get into that. That's like 9th question or something. But as far as the Tampa Bay Lightning go, Serena, what's to be said? Last week, Jeff Chikrin here, I said, who's the best team in the division? He said, Tampa. How can you not go along with Tampa Bay? We watched them play at Montreal this week. They got up 4-0, held on for a 5-3 win. And are you with me that Tampa's still Tampa?
Absolutely. I've said that several times on this show. We talk about what are they going to do without Vasilevsky. It doesn't matter. They're fine. And while I still feel like every team kind of runs its course and they always have to have that kind of reboot, I've said it before, Tampa could win the Stanley Cup. They have that talent of a team. Do I think they're going to? No, but the way we watched them against Montreal last night, if I was a Lightning fan through and through, I would be very pleased with the talent on the ice last night.
Well, we can sit and talk a little bit about the Lightning, because I wonder if any of what the media said, that the decline started and the Stevie Y days are gone, because we talked about it. I've seen the narrative that's out there. Do you think they're using any of that potentially as motivation?
I don't think so. I think that they're professionals and they're going to do what they're going to do. And I think it just comes down to the fact that they lost their starting goaltender and they knew they needed to pick it up. They had to. And they have such a talented club anyway. Guys are slowing down a little bit as we were watching Hedman last night. He definitely doesn't have the same stride he used to, but he's still extremely effective out there.
Well, I have a notification from TSN that just today, the Tampa Bay Lightning traded defenseman Zack Bogosian to the Minnesota Wild for what I think is a 7th-round pick. But we've been watching the last few Tampa games, and he's not even in the top 6 defensemen. And I'm glad that he's getting a shot in Minnesota. I think his time in Tampa's done, and he doesn't really owe anybody there anything. He's been great.
I think he'll be great in Minnesota. That team, Minnesota always has a fairly decent team. And I think that's going to be he'll be a good addition to that club that already has a lot of guys like him.
I also wrote down Matt Tompkins was the first star for the Tampa Bay Lightning in the win at Montreal, their goalie. I won't speak for you, I'll speak for me. I had no idea who this guy was. He is 10 years from when he was drafted until he got his first NHL win, and it happened in the Bell Center. We're watching it, and frankly, I was hoping for a shutout. Were you? He had it going into the 3rd period.
Well, the way Montreal played in the 1st period, I thought, well, this is going to be a shutout. They were standing around doing absolutely nothing, not helping their goaltender, and then when they pulled the goaltender, there was a little bit of a switch heading into the 2nd period. Montreal played a way better 2nd period. The 3rd period, obviously about the same. Montreal started to put the puck in the net. But I didn't expect him to get a shutout the way Montreal played in the 2nd period.
I got a question that's number 2, and that is that where would a guy buy Lightning gear? I understand around Tampa where you would get it, and I've been there lots, but it was for football camps. That's my second question. Like Panthers gear, I've worn on this show. I've got Tampa Bay winter wear. It's in Canada. If I wore it here, I'd die. If you were to go out and buy Lightning stuff, I mean, you know, for Panthers stuff, you go to the games, you can just go to the Panthers store. So that's not an easy answer.
Well, I think generally around here, everybody, Fanatics.com is the biggest. I think Fanatics sponsors or has something to do with NHL Shop. So that's where everybody orders stuff online these days. So, I mean, where would you expect to buy anything other than Panthers gear around here. Yeah.
Honestly, walk into Walmart, they got all kinds of NHL merchandise, and you and I have talked about that. But see, that's one of the differences between you and I. I like to walk into a store, try something on, maybe talk to the person behind the counter. You're not interested.
It depends. If it's something I have to try on, then I go. But I don't love to go. Like, you're a mall guy. Mm-hmm. I have to ask Rod how to get around the mall. Like, where's this? Where's that? Which way are we going? He's like, oh, go here. It's kind of around here, blah, blah. And I'm like, how do you know that? He's like, because I've spent some time in this mall. I don't even know that.
We're called mall rats.
Yeah.
That's the term. Okay, order it online. Not bad, and I hope it fits when it shows up. What do you do with stuff that doesn't fit when you order it online? What do you do?
I don't order anything online that I know doesn't already fit.
Okay. Fanatics.com.
It's got to be it.
You're
what a
welcome.
plug. Exactly.
Yeah, NHLshop.com. Now, I do know how much time we have for the podcast. It's a little over 30 minutes left. I have just written, and don't look at my notes, Serena.
Okay, I won't.
Did you look?
Not really.
Gary Bettman.
Oh, boy.
We have decidedly different opinions on Gary Bettman. And I guess since let's call you the guest today, you go first with your
What's my opinion?
Word association. Gary Bettman, the commissioner of the National Hockey League.
Do you want me to give like my opinion on a specific subject or just Gary Bettman in general?
Word association, when I say his name, what comes to mind?
Ruining the NHL. To sum it up. I mean, do you want me to go a little deeper?
I want you to be you.
Okay. We had this discussion the other night, and even Ben's laughing back here. Ever since Gary Bettman became the commissioner of the National Hockey League, the commissioner before him was John Ziegler, did an incredible job. Everybody as a child knew who John Ziegler was. We all knew. Gary Bettman comes in, not a hockey guy, doesn't know what he's doing. The league goes from 21 teams or whatever it was when Ziegler was there to 32. So you're expanding the league by that big of a percentage, and now you're diluting the talent. But also, he put hockey in markets. Listen, Florida, to have hockey teams, there's a lot of people from Canada and a lot of people from the north that come here. If anybody's watched Slapshot, they know exactly what we're talking about. It's Florida, the Sunshine State. Got to bring hockey here, right? A lot of geezers in Florida, shysters. But same thing in Southern California. He knew that those were going to be hockey markets. I am embarrassed that a team like Arizona still has a team in a college arena and nothing is getting done about it. That's the kind of commissioner Gary Bettman is. This league has had the NHL All-Star Game in Sunrise, Florida, 2 times since it has had it in the home of the Hockey Hall of Fame of Toronto. Someone explain that to me. It makes no sense. He knows he doesn't have to promote the game in Canada. I get that. It's a different promotion, but it's not growing the league. The league isn't getting better. I don't feel it is. It's not getting better because the talent is diluted compared to what it used to be. There's a team playing in a 5,000-seat arena that can't even fill the rink unless a Canadian team is there. A lot of the teams don't have sellouts unless a Canadian team is playing or a team like Pittsburgh or Philly or whatever. So has he done anything better for the league? No. We play a 3-on-3 overtime, 3-on-3, 3-on-3 to decide the hockey game. But don't worry, if you lose, you get a point because that's what we've decided society needs these days. So if you compare what the league was like when John Ziegler was the president versus Gary Bettman, it's not better.
So that was an almost 3-minute rant. I know how to push her buttons.
He knew it was going to be like that when he asked.
And just so you know, folks, she's not acting. That's a conversation from our couch. Ben, if you'd brought a camera into our living room,
yeah, we should do that.
I kind of just asked her, and she did say the other day, she was, if I can't say what I want, I don't want to do the show. And I'm like, I want you to say whatever you want. I want you to be you, and hopefully you can handle it. My take on Gary Bettman, which, by the way, I'm not acting either, is 180 degrees different from hers, but for different reasons per se. Like, I was exactly on Serena's line of thinking in the 90s, living in Canada when he took over. And I didn't like, as a matter of fact, I knew that he was anti-Canada. We can agree on that. I would say at that time he was, but I don't think he is anymore, because whether he's a hockey guy or not, he's not.
Right.
He's not dumb.
But it wouldn't have changed. Why would it change?
No. He never has not learned the game. But my point is,
No. I'm sorry. I mean, he's not. He's anti-Canada like he always was. We had the very first outdoor game, 20th anniversary, Edmonton and Montreal outside. Oh, next year, everybody's got to have an outdoor game, but not Canada. There was a game in Los Angeles. There was a game in Tahoe, which was a complete disaster. Games all over. Canada decides to have another one. No, we're going to have 2 this year in the U.S. back to back.
Yeah.
It's always got to be something more pushing the game south of the border.
Right, but the All-Star Game's in Toronto this year.
Right, for the first time in 30 years.
But it's there. So anyways, my point is I don't believe he's anti-Canada anymore, because he's realized the 7 Canadian teams are what keeps the league afloat. He's realized that. So I don't argue but the other thing with the new teams, you think, I've told you this probably 275 times, how happy I am to live in South Florida and be able to go to an NHL game. I don't know what I would do if that wasn't the case. And the plans for the Panthers to come into the league in Tampa was in motion before Gary Bettman was even thought of, so I don't give him credit for that. That wasn't him.
No, I mean, of course not.
Yeah.
But if you are of the same argument that I am, that the league went to shit when Wayne went to LA, it changed everything and nothing. Salaries got inflated. Hockey salaries aren't near what football or baseball salaries are, but there's still a salary cap. Everything just started changing when that happened.
So this is a perspective thing. It goes back to last week when we talked about, is Florida an NHL market or a hockey market? Your definition is different from what mine is. If you talk to any guy that played in the NHL in the 90s, he praises Gary Bettman because they made him a millionaire, because all the salaries went up. So that's the player's perspective. Right? Clearly different than a fan's. So I don't have a problem with that. I had a problem when he was anti-NHL, taking the Jets out of Winnipeg and moving them to Arizona is an example of that. Right? And then you talked about, why are they still there? Because he doesn't want to admit that he's wrong. I didn't say I want to hang out with Gary Bettman. I didn't say I want him as a friend. But I like the NHL. And in terms of the diluted talent, that's true. And that's a topic for another day. But I guess if we're putting a check mark or an X beside the name Gary Bettman, you're putting an X, I'm putting a check. Fair? We moving on?
Sure.
Yeah, so that's all. Now, Florida, Santa Claus is coming to town. But before that, Conor Bard is coming to town. Tampa Bay on Thursday, Sunrise on Sunday. Dun, 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 dun. It's not start spreading the news. It's like, Santa Claus is coming to town. Think of that tune. I'll say it, you'll get mad. The next Crosby, the next McDavid. I'm excited to see him. There's people coming to Florida on a swing to watch him from Canada because they've told me. Look us up at the game Sunday. I'm excited to see Conor Bedard. He has played, as we sit here today and do this show, 11 games, 7 points, and -8. Thoughts on the rookie season so far of Conor Bedard?
Well, I think he's probably doing what everybody expected him to do as far as putting the puck in. I mean, we know what kind of a wrist shot he has. We've seen it. And I think it was when they were playing Florida the other night where he scored that wrist shot on the opposite wing. And I was like, how is a goaltender going to stop that? They can't. So I would say he's probably about par for what I expected him to be doing. Nothing shocking. Either way, good, bad, or otherwise, I would say about par.
I would hope that people are excited to go. I mean, we haven't really been out of the house a whole lot this week, but if we were, you're not going to hear buzz about Conor Bard coming to town. But having said that, I'm not sure we would hear buzz about Victor Wembanyama coming to town to play the Heat, or something. You know what I mean? It's just a bigger place.
It's a bigger place. It's not the same. You're not going to get that buzz.
Yeah,
absolutely not.
So it's not about the market per se, but I tell you what, we're excited, and that's enough.
That's all I care about.
Right? And you've seen him at the World Juniors. I've seen him at the World Juniors and then live in Regina, and he's a very exciting player to watch. So we're happy about that. In Tampa Bay Thursday, in Sunrise on Sunday. Now, Serena, I don't argue with her that the hype is a lot out of control for Conor Bard to call him the next McDavid, but I've also been guilty of that. But on the McDavid topic, because I said we're not just going to talk Lightning and Panthers here, brought this up to you the other day. Your Oilers are really struggling. And whenever they do, it comes up the question, would or will Connor McDavid, the number one player in the NHL, ask for a trade out of there?
I mean, I hope not. But like you said the other day, I feel like he would have asked for one if he was going to already. Depends on where, I would say depends on where he is in his contract, whatever. But what did I say last week? Pick a goaltender. They didn't fire their coach. They put Jack Campbell on waivers. That was the right thing to do. Pick a guy and stick with him. How do you expect it if you don't know who your boss is going to be or who your coworkers are going to be? And how do you expect to play as a team if you have no consistency? Teams play as a team. And there was just that. There's still a disconnect. There's a huge disconnect in Edmonton right now. It's going to turn around. It's not one of those things that like Calgary had that disconnect last year that everybody was like, what is happening here? It's not like that. You're not going to get out of McDavid what Calgary's getting out of Huberdeau right now. It's going to turn around. And McDavid is a great captain. He's a respectful player. The guys respect him. It's going to turn around, but there has to be like something. We're going to see what happens with this Campbell fallout, whatever else it's going to be. If Skinner's going to be your guy, let him be your guy.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. We talked about more Lightning talk because people want more Lightning talk on this show. And Serena was looking at the Lightning schedule. And correct me on what the dates are, but I think it's November 18th. The Oilers are at Tampa Bay. And then the 20th, they're at Sunrise. And that clearly is her team. And I wonder how the Oilers will look like then. McDavid's going to be on the team. But is Jay Woodcraft going to be on the bench?
Well, they're not going to make another abrupt decision like that without figuring out what's going on first. You're not going to put your goaltender on waivers and then fire your coach the next day. Well, probably not.
Conventional wisdom would say no, but...
Yeah, I just don't really see that happening.
Yeah, well, they were by far the number one team in Canada coming in. Now, even Leafs fans would say the Edmonton Oilers were the number one team in Canada going into the season. And, to sit and say, what's the problem would be unfair to you because I've seen pundits, ex-coaches say, I don't know what the problem is.
Oh, it's not a talent.
I think you can all agree that you didn't see it coming.
No, and that's why you can't put your finger on it. If you can say, okay, we lost this person, we lost that person. Last year, the Oilers got better than they were the year before. And I was like, man, this is really good. And everybody was like, I really thought this was the Oilers' year. Like, yeah, well, so did I. But you never know what can happen. There's always some change in dynamic or whatever. And I firmly believe that the goaltending situation, you have to pick a guy. I've always said that. And Tampa makes no bones about the fact that Vasilevsky's their goaltender. New Jersey made no bones about the fact that Marty Brodeur was their guy. And it just goes to show you how important it is. It's like having a bad starting pitcher.
Well, it's funny how people ask for more Lightning talk, and it's not hard for us to give it to them. You and I were on the couch watching the Lightning game. You pointed out, you said Tampa Bay has more goals than Montreal has shots right now, and that was near the end of the first period. That was what I love about shows like this is, we did one before the season even began, and John Cooper said we're going to cut down on scoring opportunities against and shots against. And I thought, sounds great. How long are you going to be able to do that? We're into November. They're doing it. Why can't the Edmonton Oilers do that? Because Matt Tompkins and Jonas Johansson aren't as good as Stuart Skinner and Jack Campbell. I'm sorry, they're not. But Tampa's winning and Edmonton isn't.
But Tompkins has been playing better. There's a reason Campbell was put on waivers.
It's not hard when you don't have any shots against.
No, of course. But also, too, Edmonton's defense is
not good.
Mediocre at best, and it always has been.
Hey, folks, just stop for a second to tell you that the NFL season is going strong, and DraftKings Sportsbook is hooking new customers up with an offer that's even stronger. Bet $5 on any game this week to score $200 instantly in bonus bets, and DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of a sweetener offer every game day this month. Get in on the game day greatness. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the promo code THPN. You see it on the screen. THPN stands for the Hockey Podcast Network, of which we're proudly a part of. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets when you bet $5 on the NFL. That's code THPN only on DraftKings Sportsbook, official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. We're into the second half of the program already in question 6. Serena is who's a contender and who's a pretender. You know, it was just a couple years ago that I heard this stat, and you and I have been following hockey our whole lives, but this was new to me. If you were in a playoff spot at U.S. Thanksgiving, 80% of those teams will make the playoffs. So you look at teams that are leading their divisions right now, or even out of the bubble. Florida broke that rule last year. They were out of a playoff spot at U.S. Thanksgiving and got in. They were in the 20%. What are you laughing at?
I'm laughing because that is clearly a Canadian stat, because Americans would never say U.S. Thanksgiving.
I know, but it is what it is.
But that's how Canadians say it. 100%. Yeah. I've heard that before. But do I agree with that? Meh. I mean, yeah, okay, 80%. If you're telling me 98%, then I'm more impressed. 80%, the teams that are crap in the league are going to be crap. The teams like Florida that were not in a playoff spot that did were not a crap team last year. They just didn't have as strong of a start. Do I think Edmonton's going to make the playoffs? Yes. Do I think Calgary's going to? No. That's the difference. You know the difference between Edmonton and Calgary right now. Edmonton is going to turn it around. They have no choice. They have the talent. It's going to happen. There's just a disconnect, and they got to figure out what it is.
Well, what I have written is contender or pretender. I've actually more question 6 and question 7 in there, so forgive me. But as we sit here and look at who are, contending teams, and coming up, we'll talk about a potential Stanley Cup final matchup. But we can all agree that the Vegas Golden Knights are number 1, but the Boston Bruins are the 2nd overall team in the NHL. Nobody saw that coming.
I'll tell you what. I don't know why not.
Because they lost David Krejci and Patrice Bergeron.
But Boston reminds me a lot in that regard of Tampa. You can lose a couple guys here and there, but they still have that strong core. Vegas, I mean, wow. Vegas has been really good this year. Not shockingly. Maybe I am a little bit surprised at how well they're playing. I mean, and then on the flip side, like Vancouver, where did that come from?
Well, are they serious?
They're pretenders.
They're pretenders?
Yeah.
Well, I think they are, but...
But when we watched them in Sunrise, I was really impressed with the effort Vancouver put in. They don't have a lot of superstars, but man, they had guys work really hard, and they took every advantage of the weakness that the Panthers have on defense in that game.
Well, we just look at the top 5 teams. We've talked about Vegas, we've talked about Boston, we've talked about Vancouver. We have not talked about the New York Rangers, and I'm really interested to see when they come to town to Sunrise. And I haven't checked the schedule, but Jonathan Quick was in goal when they won in Edmonton already earlier this year. They're pretty stacked, and actually they set a record for their best road trip of 5+ games ever in a franchise history. And by the way, that's 100+ years.
The Rangers are always good. You're always going to have a good team. But once they drafted Lafreniere, I was like, look out. They are so 3 lines deep. They have guys that are just, they're so good. They are so talented. They have strong defense. Even when they, I think a lot of people, when Lundqvist retired back, whatever, I think a lot of people are like, ooh, what's going to happen here? And to be fair, they haven't really had a consistent goaltender since then. Maybe that's their Achilles heel. I don't know. But they have guys that have played well, just not like Lundqvist, who was there for so long. That kind of a guy is what I'm saying. Man, the Rangers, look out. I thought last year they were going to do more damage than they did.
Sure, they shit the bed against the Devils in the playoffs. So that's why I'm not sold. That's why I'm not sold.
Something's coming.
Yeah, well, that might have been a learning lesson too.
But same as Buffalo. You look at Buffalo, man, did they have an unbelievable amount of young, talented players. They're stacked with old junior players, and man, what a talented team, but it's going to take some time.
Bonus question, Ben, perk up. Somebody asked me this. What do you think about Patrick Kane coming to the Florida Panthers? He is going to be ready to go somewhere around midseason, maybe Christmas. And they're thinking, what do you think? And I'm thinking might be exactly what they need to put them over the top. He's sitting back. He's had hip surgery, 3-time Stanley Cup champion. You talk about the Rangers, it made me think of that. He didn't do anything in the playoffs last year, but maybe he was hurt. He had to have surgery right after. I think Patrick Kane could be exactly what the Florida Panthers need. I'd like to see. They'll find the way financially to get it done, and maybe he'll come for cheap. What do you think about Kane to the Florida Panthers?
I don't think it would hurt the Panthers. I completely agree. They need a guy like him. I think they were kind of hoping to get that over the last couple of years, with Mark Stahl or what. They were hoping, not that that's the same kind of player, but they were just kind of hoping for that extra, you know. And can Kane give it to them? I think he's kind of past his prime, but they know what they're getting if they sign a Patrick Kane tomorrow versus a Patrick Kane 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, well, they're saying it seems Florida's leading the pack to sign him. So that would be pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, with those old Blackhawks, the Blackhawks, when they won the Stanley Cup, what an incredible team. That was probably one of the best defensive teams that have won the Stanley Cup in decades, literally. And so when Duncan Keith went to Edmonton, I thought, what have we got to lose? He's a great defenseman, but I think he's kind of over the hill. And he kind of showed that where it was like, yeah, this isn't really going to pan out. If they do sign Patrick Kane, it probably obviously will be for like a year or whatever. It's not going to be for very long.
No. It'll be a Joe Namath to the LA Rams type deal. Joe Montana to the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah, you won't remember that he went there.
Yeah.
Jerome McGinley to Colorado type thing. Dirty question here, but I don't mind. I teed it up earlier in the show. Who has more fans, the Lightning or the Panthers? And by the way, the guy that asked me that was Chris from the Bronx. It was like in the fall he asked me that. Because he's not really a hockey. He's from New York, as you know, and he's a Rangers fan because he has to be. He's from the Bronx. But he just legitimately wanted to know who has more fans. And I just wondered, how do you measure that? Do we go by Twitter followers, Instagram?
I think it'd be pretty hard. I think it's pretty hard to measure, but I would say Tampa. I mean, they pack their rink every night. They don't have a problem. For years, they haven't had a problem selling out their rink. So I think probably Tampa. But again, we don't live over there, so I don't know. It's apples and oranges, maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure what the answer is.
I need to examine it a little more. I mean, you look at two sport regions, even a city. Because Chris and I have had these discussions. Yankees, Mets, no comparison.
Right.
Giants, Jets, no comparison. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's one's up here, one's down here. And I don't want to say that the Lightning are up here and the Panthers are here, but based on cups,
Well, the Heat are up here, if you want to compare it like that, right?
No. I mean...
You mean same sport?
Same, no. Yes, sorry, yes, same sport.
They're just too geographically far.
Yeah, not different sports.
Too geographically far apart. It's like Edmonton and Calgary. Tampa and Sunrise are probably almost exactly the same amount. We'll have to do that. Next week, I'll figure out the distance between the rinks. That's what I'm going to do for next week.
Well,
but
you also know the answer to that. The Oilers have more fans. I can confidently say that as we sit here today.
For sure. There's not, unless you're a Flames fan, you don't like the Flames. Like generally in Canada, if you're not a Flames fan, you despise the Flames. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm not really sure because we know some Lightning fans, and they obviously don't like the Panthers and whatever, but I wouldn't say we know a whole whack of Lightning fans here.
I'm sort of reserving my answer because... when I came to Florida 2 years ago doing my regular talk show, I had people saying you need to do more Panthers talk on that show. I started, and the regular viewers didn't like it because they're in Canada. That's why we're sitting here doing cats and bolts. So now we sit here and talk about the Panthers 90% of the time, and people are like, can you talk more Lightning?
Yeah. Well,
so, again, I'm getting on to it.
It kind of goes back to when we were growing up, and I remember just being like, man, I really wish I could watch Jay Bouwmeester. Jay Bouwmeester was 15 years old when he played at the World Juniors. 15. Well, I think at the time he was the youngest player to ever play at the World Juniors. And I was like, man, I really want to watch Jay Bouwmeester. I couldn't watch Panthers hockey. It wasn't televised like it was. So people just don't have that attachment because they don't have the opportunity until the last however many years to watch the games.
Yeah, now you can, for sure.
Yeah.
By the way, we should tell you that we're brought to you in part by Beach House Pompano. a scenic rooftop restaurant on the shores of Pompano Beach, and Baresco, a tropical outpost serving only the freshest tacos with lush jungle vibes, 225 North Pompano Beach Boulevard. And when our guests go in there, please look up Thad. He has specifically requested. Ask for Thad and tell him the Cats and Bolts podcast sent you. He's the general manager there. And I'll tell you that the Cats and Bolts podcast is coming to Tampa Bay. So for those that are watching over there in the Bay region, send us a DM. Let's make it happen. Let's hook up. I only got a couple last questions here. Should be about 5 minutes per answer. Perfect timing.
Oh, boy.
You think I've done this before?
This is going to be something sassy.
No. It's actually not.
Okay.
You asked me if I had anything hot for you, and you've been able to handle this so far. No problems, right? You've enjoyed this, I hope.
Yeah.
Judging by your face, I can
Yeah.
tell you have. A very simple Stanley Cup prediction. You hate mine, but at least I'm willing to make them. I just realized you probably don't want to talk about it because you don't like giving predictions.
So, for background,
I think we've talked about this.
I cannot predict. I don't like doing it because I'm always so, well, this team could do this and this team could do this. And realistically, this team, I prefer the analytical side of like what could potentially happen.
Right.
I've never been a predictor. I will never bet on my team. Never. It's one of those things. But sometimes I don't hate your predictions. They're just usually wrong. So I'm like, please say Edmonton's not going to win in the playoffs.
Yeah. I'm not necessarily ready to sit here today and say who I think will be in the Stanley Cup final. It's just fun to me. Like, who cares? Most people don't really remember. Bob McKenzie said that to me one time. When he said, your guy, Bobby Margarita from the Hockey News and TSN, he's like, people don't remember what you report. Just say whatever you want.
Bobby
said
can
that.
because Bob's got clout.
Yeah.
But I don't mind having the discussion of who could potentially be there. Vegas, obviously,
They're
in the
rolling.
West.
Why would you think they wouldn't be in the Stanley Cup?
Correct. With the East, I feel like you never know. I feel like Tampa is going to make one hard run at it again because Stamkos is in the final year of his contract. It's going to go hot. Somebody's going to come out a dark horse like they always do.
Sure, but you never know who that'll be.
The Rangers. I think if it's anybody, it's going to be Boston or the Rangers that surprise people. Just because Boston, realistically, last year, if they don't lose to Florida in the first round, they probably could have done some damage.
Are the Rangers a dark horse if they're fourth overall right now and maintain this? I don't think they would be categorized as a dark horse.
I just mean, would people expect them to win the Stanley Cup? Probably not. Vancouver's 9-2 and 1 or something like that.
That would be a dark horse.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? That's just kind of what I mean.
Well, the interesting thing, too, is the Leafs. We always like talking about the Leafs. And I love when the Leafs play Tampa because I love blue. It's my favorite color. It's the nicest two jersey combinations in the NHL, I think. Aside from Chicago, best jersey. Take your orders out of the conversation. Chicago Blackhawks Reds are the best jersey in sports as far as I'm concerned. I hope they wear them Sunday. They might.
I love their original, the original with the stripe. For now, you're talking jerseys now, best jerseys now.
Any NHL jersey. What's your favorite? You're going to go buy one, and you can't buy the orders.
I need a second.
I know it's hard. The LA Kings gold they're up there. But for me, it would be a Bedard 98 Chicago jersey. Do you want to pass? Is this like Family Feud? Pass.
Yeah. You can't pass on Family Feud, I don't
what's
think.
What's the thing in the ding? Yeah, they do. Steve Harvey, that's your... In the
lightning round? I don't think you can pass. Oh, in that one. Yeah.
Lightning round, yeah.
Fast money.
We're not letting her out of here without an answer on that.
Okay, let me think.
But just on the Leafs, now multiple games this year, they've had their star players get run. Or any of their players, not even necessarily star players, and they haven't done anything about it. And you don't watch the highlights and stories. You watch the highlights. You don't watch the BS like I do, right?
Listen, I like to know what's happening, but that's it, the end of it.
Yeah.
I don't need to see
I wish I was more like you that
times.
way.
I can't.
I get sucked in.
Yeah, I I got to put my phone down. I don't need to see everybody's angle about what happened with this slew foot or whatever else. Having said that, when we were watching Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday, they did a really good job of breaking down, they know what they're doing. That is a legit broadcast that could break down with former players X, Y, and Z. So it was really entertaining to watch the actual breakdown.
And they said it shouldn't have been a penalty.
I think they said, yeah, it was something like that. His stick was caught, whatever. I don't really remember, but they basically didn't feel like it was as bad as it probably originally looked. Because fair enough, if you slew foot somebody, that is bad, right? But when they broke it down, they're like, well, his stick was stuck in front and whatever else with the slew foot situation.
Basically, Toronto needs to get a whole lot tougher.
Fast. They got nobody. Get a guy then.
Well, they got Ryan Reeves. He's not doing anything.
He's not doing anything.
Yeah.
Get a guy that's going to do
not
something.
Doing anything.
Like, what's wrong with you?
Well, I know. And Max Domi, 8 years, 8 teams.
Max Domi, I was just going to say, that guy's played on 15 different teams. He is not his father. Don't start trying to make him his father.
Okay. And the last one, can we believe we got through this? It's actually 11 or 12 burning questions. Re-examining the Matthew Tkachuk, Jonathan Huberdeau trade, because this week, it's all they're talking about in Calgary is Jonathan Huberdeau benched in a game that they come back and win when they score 3 goals with him on the bench. This is a guy that was an all-star with the Panthers, longest-serving Panther, beloved Panther. And in Calgary, they're benching him. And let's forget about Mackenzie Weegar and anybody else that was involved in that trade. It was Tkachuk for Huberdeau. Really. Don't you think?
Yeah, fair enough.
There were the principles. Yeah. And I just think we're declaring the Panthers just fleeced them. The definition of fleece in that trade. I didn't expect it to go this way. Literally horribly awry, specifically for Jonathan Huberdeau.
I'm actually, after they benched him last night, I think the thing that's burning in my mind the most is what took them so long.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. Last year, with
Daryl Sutter.
Daryl Sutter last year, it was a completely different dynamic. Ryan Huska comes in, and it's like, well, did he deserve to be benched? I don't know if he specifically is the only one that's not living up or playing up to his potential, but that's what's got to happen to send a message.
Yeah, the odd thing here is that from anybody you talk to, they love Jonathan Huberdeau with the Panthers, and they say it was a money situation why they got rid of him. And then they signed Matthew Tkachuk to $8.5 million. Huberdeau's getting $10.5 million in Calgary. Just Tkachuk for Huberdeau 1-for-1 would have been enough. And Tkachuk finally scored, by the way. Not that it really mattered. You were never really concerned about that.
No.
Right?
But I mean, if you look at their salaries, like when they swapped, that makes sense. Huberdeau did deserve more money. Absolutely. But I'm honestly still perplexed because Huberdeau, man, he was fun to watch here. Yeah. I think he's such a great hockey player.
Well, to be honest, Serena, what I said on my other show today, and I'll say this, is we watched the games together. He does zing, 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 zings in Florida, up and down the wing. Huberdeau never was asked to carry the puck. Do you know what I mean? And he just buzzed around the net, make plays, and everybody was happy. And in Calgary, they're making him carry the puck up ice, transition as they call it. He's turning it over. He's minus. He's a different player. I guess they're just asking him to do something different.
Which is interesting because if you really think about when Calgary lost Gaudreau, nobody even talks about him anymore. He played here the other night.
Didn't even know that he played.
Didn't even know. And it's just funny how sometimes the dynamic changes. It's just like any of us. If we have a job that we happen to be working in a toxic work environment, maybe we're not happy. We don't know. These players are human beings. We don't know what they're going on. Clearly, Matthew Tkachuk is very happy here because it's showing on the ice. Maybe Huberdeau's not happy there. Maybe Gaudreau's not. I don't know. But people lose sight of the fact that these guys are human beings. And whether you are a professional or not, you can't just snap your fingers and do X, Y, or Z because that's what you're paid for. We want that to happen, but they're humans.
There you go. Who wouldn't be happy here? What? Look at her, Ben. She's pointing at me.
Because I thought.
What's the last thing you got?
The Hartford Whalers unis from top to bottom.
Can't disagree.
Aren't those fire?
I wish I had my bell. I would ring it. That was a beautiful jersey combo right there.
Green pants.
Hartford. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, for sure.
Beautiful.
Although I'm kind of in love with my
I know you like the blue.
Baby blue Panther thirds, but still. Maybe they'll wear them Sunday when Chicago comes to town.
When Jovo was on our show a couple weeks ago, I was like, I wonder where he got that. Because he was wearing that light blue.
I see them around the rink, and I'm like, I feel like asking
Can
people.
I have that?
Yeah, can I peel it off your back? Okay, Serena, I think we got it all.
I think so.
All right, good job. And to the Podcast Junkies crew, thanks for listening to us, and to the wonderful audience. We'll see you next week, and we're coming to Tampa, everybody. So watch for details, and we'll see you next week here on the Cats and Bulls podcast.